Hello, Revere, and welcome to another great show. Today we have a young lady who's running for Councillor At-Large. Her name is Dimple. Rana?
Yes.
I got it right. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Dimples.
you. Thank you for having me, Morris.
It's a pleasure and an honor.
Same
And
here.
before we start, give us a little about yourself. Just tell us exactly about yourself and education so people would know exactly.
Sure. So as Morris said, my name is Dimple Rana. I am a lifelong Revere resident and a proud graduate of Revere High, and actually I've been in Revere school system since elementary school at the Old Wayland and at the Garfield, and graduated from Revere High class in 1998. I'm proud of it. I've also gone on to Hofstra University for my undergrad and graduated with a degree in public health. And I've been in Revere pretty much since I came back from college, and just recently, this past June, I finished my master's in public policy at Tufts University. So I now have a master's, which I never thought I would.
That's great.
Thank you. And I work for the city as well. You might have seen some of the work that I do. And I work for the city, but I also do a lot of things outside of my job, and one of those is now running for Councillor At-Large.
What is your job for the city, if I may ask?
Sure. So for the city, I am currently the Director of Healthy Community Initiatives. I also co-lead Revere on the Move with MGH Revere Cares. And our work in my department consists of making the city a healthy place, making it a better place to eat and play for all residents and all community members.
That's great. Great. Next questions. Before we went on the air, we were talking about your parents.
Yes.
And they come from India.
Correct.
Tell us a little about them, how they like it, because there is a different culture there than there is here.
Yes. Well, my parents immigrated to the United States back in 1979, and they were about my age, actually probably a little younger than myself when, actually a lot younger than myself, when they came to Boston. That's where they arrived, and they've been here for 30 years, and they are actually more American now than Indian, where they grew up, and it's, something that we're very proud of.
Dimples, may I call you Dimples? Usually when they come from the Asian, from that side, they wind up in California. So I've got to ask you, how did your parents get all the way from the west to the east?
Well, my grandfather, on my mom's side, actually loves Boston, and because of all of our great universities and our Massachusetts being known for education, and he wanted his next generation of family and his grandchildren to grow up here in Boston and being close to first-class education.
Right, we do have the greatest. Harvard?
Yes.
MIT?
Yep.
Tufts? I was getting there.
BC, BU,
That's right. Yep,
Northeastern.
BC. Yep.
We have amazing schools. Even UMass Boston is incredible.
Sometimes, I'm not to offend any of the other 49 states, I think the brains of the United States come from around this area, really. And we do have a lot of foreign students going to the schools here because they are good schools.
Exactly.
Okay, I'd like to talk to you about two things.
Sure.
One is Wonderland, and one is Suffolk Downs. Could you tell us how you feel about those, or do you have any idea?
Well, I know that for Revere, I want a very strong local economy, and I want to make sure that any future development that comes to the city is a benefit to the city and not a burden. And we actually have the best real estate in the region right now to have acres of land that is vacant and needs to be developed in the proximity that Revere is to Boston is pretty much unheard of. There's no other city that has acres of land that's open. So what I want to see in those parcels is actually something that's going to benefit the city, as I said, and I want everybody to be part of what we all want to see. So what I want is a master plan for the city. I want a master plan that's been talked about but hasn't been done. I want something that each and every resident has a voice in seeing what they want for the future, especially for those 2 parcels.
The master plan that you just mentioned, what did they talk about, if I may ask you?
So the master planning process hasn't happened yet, and that's something that I,
Councillor?
as counselor, I am going to be a huge advocate for that. We need to have a master plan before we continue to develop in the city. We need to have resident input on the vision for the city. We have a big traffic issue. We have an issue with our schools being crowded. We have developments that are happening without a broader discussion, and I want to make sure that residents have a seat at the table to be part of those decisions, and that 20, 30 years from now, we can be even a greater city. We're already a good city, amazing city, but we can be even better.
I agree with you on that. We spoke about your education. Now, why are you exactly running for Councillor At-Large? I mean, it's not easy. You know, you have to go around and knock on doors and talk to people. What?
You're right. It's not that easy, but I decided I needed to take on this challenge. This is my city. This is where I've lived my whole life. This is where my parents have lived for 30 years, and this is where my nephews and my niece are. This is where my sister, my brother-in-law, my aunts and uncles, my cousins continue to live. And I wanna be part of the change that is happening right now and the change that will continue to happen. And I also, I'm running because as a lifelong Revere resident, and the city being about 39% foreign born according to the last census.
How many percent?
39%.
That's quite a bit.
That's quite a bit, and that was just from 2015 American Community Survey numbers from the U.S. Census. I know that when we do the census again in 2020, that I'm pretty sure that those numbers are going to be higher, and I'm running because I want to be part of the leadership that represents the people who also live here in the city. I want to make sure that we represent a one Revere, that everybody's voice is being heard, and that we are stronger together.
I'm sure you will do a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to talk about youth and education, if I may.
Sure. So again, as a proud graduate of the Revere Public School Systems, I have actually, because of my education here in Revere and what I've learned in my experience growing up here, actually I learned to be a community organizer and help to build communities, and I continue to do that today. And with youth, I think that we as a city need to have more resources for our youth, especially our youth who are in middle school and in high school. Our high school age youth have no activities outside of the schools. And we need a youth center. We need a place for them to go and not feel that they have nowhere else to go. That includes recreational activities, but also includes other activities such as the arts, computers, cooking, skills that unfortunately are not at our schools anymore because of changes over the last 20, 30 years, not just in Revere, but around the country. And our youth need a full spectrum of resources and education. And having a youth center, having a community center would be great for the city. And I have been an advocate for a youth center for the last 5 years. I helped to co-found Revere Youth in Action, which is a youth group founded by 4 high school students who were seniors at the time in 2012, who came to a group of adults and asked, why doesn't Revere have a youth center? And can any of you help us bring one here? And I raised my hand because as a young person who grew up here, I know the value of what a youth center or space for youth can provide for our next generation. We have a very big opioid epidemic in the city.
Right, before I go into the opium epidemic, and they want to build a new high school.
Mm-hmm.
Where would that be if, let's say you were in charge? Where would you put the new high school? Because you can't tear down the old one because they still got to go to school there. So where would you
Exactly.
put the new one?
I would love to see the new one.
If you could pick if you could pick a spot.
If I could pick a spot, I would put it where the Wonderland dog track used to be. I would put it there because it could be a combination of a new high school, a youth center, or a community center, all in one. A new senior center, something else that we desperately need in the city.
I was going to get to that later, but go ahead.
But you know, having an education complex that includes the high school, where it could be something that could also link to the businesses that I hope will be down there too. Businesses in technology, business in bioscience, business in where our generation is going towards technology. And if our youth have a pathway to be around those types of businesses and also intern and learn and progress into their adulthood, they're leaving Revere, or they're staying in Revere with a high school diploma, but also skills for the workforce.
You know, we have a senior center that needs to work. For example, the railings are gone. The back parking lot is, you can trip walking there.
I know.
Oh, you've been there?
Oh, yes.
And you can see that manhole in the sewer, and I tell people that sometimes will pop open. We might even lose a senior down there someday. That's how bad it
I
really
hope
is.
not, but
That's how bad
it is
really
dangerous.
But you know, what I would like to do, if you were on the council, let's say you were on the council meeting, and I came up to you and say, what would you do for our senior center? What would you say back to me?
What I would want to do for the senior center is,
And the youth center and all the centers.
I would love to see a one big center, something that's intergenerational. It can also be separate, but somewhere where youth and seniors are together, because I know that there's a lot of, again, the technologies that the youth can help the seniors with, and a lot of the history that seniors have can teach our young people, because it's really important to know what the city is and how you grew up here and where you want to see it go. And I would advocate for a brand new senior center. I think that where the senior center is right now,
On Winthrop Avenue, yeah.
yes, on Winthrop Avenue, we can renovate that building, or we can find another location that could be either somewhere where the current high school is, or maybe the old McKinley School.
Right.
You know, that's right in the middle of the city. It's accessible for everybody.
That would be great. Now, before you mentioned drugs,
Yes,
we do have an opium problem in the city, but we have an opium problem in the country.
we do.
You would like to talk about that, so take it away, Rana.
Well, I want to talk about it because, again, you know, that goes back to our youth and our education for our youth, and the fact that we don't have places for our high school age youth and our college age youth to go in the city. And we have an opiate epidemic where Revere is #2 in the state with overdoses.
Number 2,
#2,
can I ask you, who's number 1 then?
Everett. Yep, not right next door.
That was good. Wow.
Yeah, and you know, it's alarming, and we need to have a compassionate approach to the opiate epidemic. We need to do more around harm reduction to keep people alive. We also need to do a lot to keep people from getting onto drugs as well. So preventative, especially for our young people. So it's a multi-approach. You can't just answer that question with just one answer.
No.
And it's something that it is a national epidemic, and I know that there are amazing people who have been on the streets, on the sidelines, saving lives, and we have some amazing people here. Kim Hanton at North Suffolk, Gary Langis, also who actually was just in Houston to go and help people who are opiate addicted and have been displaced and are homeless because of the hurricane, and he went down from Revere down to Houston to help those people, and that's amazing.
Great, but now I got to ask you, opium people that are addicted on drugs, sometimes it's a matter of seconds that you can save a life from the drugs. There's a firehouse that's closed on the Point of Pines. I would like to see how you feel about that. It's closed now, and how would you feel to get it back on track?
I want to see that fire station back open. The Point of Pines is a beautiful place, but during the summer and during school time, to get from even this part of the city to the Point of Pines, it takes sometimes upwards of 45 minutes, sometimes longer. And if there's an emergency there, especially a fire emergency or a call for an overdose, our emergency personnel, our emergency vehicles and equipment need to get there as fast as possible. So I'm in full support, and as council, I would also advocate to reopen that fire station. It's a need. There's also more residential development going up on the beach.
Right.
And we're going to need that station open. That area of the city is getting more and more dense.
Mentioning about getting there, that leads me into the traffic problem in the city of Revere. Mm-hmm. If you could alleviate it, which I doubted, but let's say you could, how would you go about doing it and helping us out?
So the traffic is such an issue.
Right. You came here tonight, we came here tonight, and it is an issue.
It is an issue. It takes me sometimes almost 30 minutes to get to my house to work at City Hall, and it's less than a mile away. And so that shouldn't be the case. So that's why, what I said earlier, that we need a master plan in the city around all of our future and current developments. We need to also consider traffic as part of that master plan. We also need to talk with our surrounding cities and to see what we can do as a region to lessen the traffic, because Revere is the gateway to the North Shore. We have multiple highways connecting Boston to the rest of the North Shore, and we have traffic coming in and out of the city. And we should be talking with our neighboring cities on a regional plan to alleviate that traffic. Route 1 is getting an abundance of residential development. And the traffic on Route 1, as it is now, it's impossible.
I agree with you.
It's a parking lot if you try to go on certain times of the day.
Well, we saw that coming down here when a fire truck could not get by the traffic.
Exactly.
And we were talking about the highway going from Lynn to Revere Street, that highway that goes down with the
American Legion?
with the Wharf Restaurant is, that road?
1A.
1A, yep.
Yes.
The fire truck couldn't even get by.
And that's a problem.
And I don't know where it was coming from, but do you need one in the Point of Pines? Because if they had to go the other way, they'd have just as tough a time.
Exactly.
Okie dokie. So we talked about the fire station. Let's talk about the crime rate in Revere. You said it's the opium problem, the crime.
So with the crime, I actually would like to see data to see how bad the crime is in the city. I know in the journal that I read every week, I read the police blotter because I want to know what types of crimes are happening and what's being done to address those crimes. So as city council, I want to be an advocate to work with the police department. I do now, and I will continue to do so to alleviate the crime in the city, and also be able to improve community relations with our public safety. Because if people are afraid to call the police if something is going on, or to identify what's happened at a crime scene and are afraid in talking to the police, we need to do something to increase our communication, and community relations will help in reporting crimes in the city.
Right, and by the way, there is a shortage of police in the city of Revere. I believe there's also a shortage of firemen in the city of Revere. How would you alleviate that problem? I would leave that up to you. If you had the last thing to say and you were the mayor in the city of Revere.
Well, I'm, running for city council. And what it goes back to our youth and education. We don't have any resources in the city that are currently doing any workforce development or any internship programs that would eventually place our youth into jobs once they graduate high school, or to have those hard skills to be able to move on if they're not going to continue to higher education. And that's the same thing with our public safety, with our fire and police. We need to create pathways to those workforces. If we are not doing that right now, we're not going to have people.
That's true. Now, you do a lot of things on Shirley Avenue.
Yes.
What future developments would you like to see if you could on Shirley Avenue?
Well, Shirley Avenue is...
let's say from Revere Beach Station to the Circle, Bell Circle.
Well, Shirley Ave is very dear to me. That's where I spent a lot of my time growing up in the city, and I spend a lot of time as an adult there in the city because it's such a beautiful part of the city. The food, the people, just the environment, the proximity to the beach. What I was mentioning earlier about our open parcels, in that we have prime real estate in the region, what we also have is a prime destination in the city, our beach and Shirley Avenue. I don't think there's anywhere on the eastern seaboard where you can go to a public beach and eat your way through the world.
Right.
And we can turn Shirley Ave into a destination where we have tourists and visitors come to visit our businesses. But our businesses need support too. They need support to improve their facades and improve their storefronts and improve their infrastructure. And without that, we're not going to have the economic development around Shirley Ave, but also within the corridor. Right now, a lot of people who live in the neighborhood utilize those businesses, but there's also people who come from very far away to come eat at some of those restaurants.
Right. Shirley Avenue is very diversified.
Mm-hmm. And I want to see it continue to be a diverse, multicultural street and neighborhood. I want to keep its integrity and the people who live there, and also the economy that thrives there.
Very good. Tell us something about, we talked about your family originally, but tell us a little bit more about them. What it was like, your parents told you what it was growing up in India, for example, the difference between there and here, cultural-wise.
Well, there's a lot of different differences.
Give some of them.
Well, for my mom, for example, my grandparents traveled a lot for business, so she also stayed in different parts of India with other family. And she also grew up in Mumbai, which is like LA to India. Oh. And that's where all of the music and the movies and the entertainment comes from. So she talks about, sometimes, sneaking out of class and going out with her girlfriends to the movie theater, and the food that she would eat and the movies that she would watch, and how different it was back then and now. And even for my dad, he grew up in a part of India. Both of my parents are Gujarati. My dad grew up in Anand in Gujarat, and it's a farming town, and that whole area is, a lot of the dairy in India comes from where my dad grew up. So he talks a lot about that, and also working with my grandfather, who had a very big business in the town. And my grandfather was also, what I found out later in life, was mayor of the town for a long time.
I have to tell you, Dimples, when I was a young child, India had a population of 750 million at the time. They're over a billion now, I believe.
I think it's somewhere upwards towards 6 billion.
6 billion?
Yes.
They don't sleep at night.
It's very crowded.
It is because
it's very crowded.
Right. I mean, that must be tough for the economy of India, which means it's a very democratic country, but the economy must be very, very low. Do they still have the caste system that they had years ago, or that's gone?
The current Prime Minister Modi, he's done a lot over the last couple of years to improve the cash system.
They still hold that there?
They have the cash system, but he eliminated some currency to bring out some of the people from the black market and trying to actually expose the corruption. And so there's been a lot of changes in India. Actually, the economy there is doing well. The class divide does get bigger. The middle class is shrinking also in India, which is a problem. But in a lot of the cities in India, there is extreme wealth and a lot of people who are choosing not to come to the United States anymore.
We got about a minute and a half left, and
Sure.
I just take a minute to wrap it up.
Morris, thank you so much for having me on your show and allowing me to tell the city about who I am. Again, Dimple Rana, I'm running for Councillor At-Large. I'm a lifelong Revere resident, and I'm very proud of my city, and I want it to continue to grow. And the way that we can do that is as one Revere. We rise together, and we're stronger together.
Right. Rana? Dimple, Rana, thank you for coming on the show. God bless you, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much,
And
Morris.
before I close, I just want to say, I see really quick, a lot of homeless people in India, but we also have a lot of homeless people in America, and that problem should be solved by the worldwide nations. So I want to say thank you again for coming. Thank you to the people of Revere. God bless us all. God bless our military. God bless our great country, the United States of America, and thank you all for listening.